It's an open heaven. You're releasing, and we will never be denied. 'Cause we're stirring up deep, deep wells. We're stirring up deep, deep waters. We're gonna dance in the river, dance in the river. We're stirring up deep, deep wells. We're stirring up deep, deep waters. We're gonna jump in the river, jump in the river. Deep, deep cries out to you. Deep cries out to you. We cry out to you, Jesus. Again, deep cries out to you. Deep cries out to you. We cry out to you, Jesus. Sing with us again. I've got a river. I've got a river of living water, fountain that never will run dry. It's an open heaven. You're releasing, and we will never be denied. 'Cause we're stirring up deep, deep wells, stirring up deep, deep waters. We're gonna dance in the river, dance in the river. 'Cause we're stirring up deep, deep wells. We're stirring up deep, deep waters. We're gonna jump in the river, jump in the river. Deep cries out to you. Deep cries out to you. We cry out to you, Jesus. Deep cries out to you. Deep cries out to you. We cry out to you, Jesus. We're falling into deeper waters, calling out to you. We're walking into deeper waters, going after you. Let's sing it again. We're falling into deeper waters, calling out to you. Yes, we're calling. Walking into deeper waters, going after you. All right. If anyone knows the song, we got some movements here. Let's get that body all limber. Here we go. If he goes to the left, then we go to the left. If he goes to the right, we're gonna go to the right. We're gonna jump in the river. Jump, everybody. If he goes to the left, then he goes to the left. If he goes to the right, gonna go to the right. We're gonna dance in the river. Dance, oh dance, everybody. If he goes to the left, then he goes to the left. If he goes to the right, then he goes to the right. We're gonna jump in the river. Jump, oh jump, everybody. If he goes to the left, then he goes to the left. If he goes to the right, we're gonna go to the right. We're gonna shout in the river. Shout. And we cries out, deep cries out to you. Deep cries out to you. We cry out to you, Jesus. Deep cries out to you. Deep cries out to you. We cry out to you, Jesus.
Good morning, Forward Point. How is everyone? All right, right, can we give it up to Lee?
Breath after all
Can we
that
give it up
dancing.
to Lee for doing the Christian version of the cha-cha slide back there? That was great. Good morning, everyone. My name is Sonia, and I'm joined up here by my friend Casey.
Hi, everybody.
Right here at Forward Point, we are a community of faith, hope, and love, helping people find their purpose. Because we believe you were created on purpose. For a purpose. And we want to be part of that story any way we can.
Woo. I don't know, I'm still out of breath.
Yeah.
A lot of jumping around in that one. Yes, as Sonia said, my name is Casey, and if you didn't see me up front, if you're new here, first of all, we're absolutely delighted that you're here today. If you have any questions about anything that's going on, feel free to come up and ask me. Make sure you get your banana bread. I think, we've gotten quite a few new people in the last couple of weeks, so definitely make sure that you're keeping in touch with us. You can do that through social media, Facebook, Twitter. The best way, though, is the app.
Yes.
The Church Center app. You can get that right off your local or your whatever your app store. App store. You can get that right there. You can also get us online.
Yes, get us online through Facebook and Instagram. Connect with us there. And, of course, that Church Center app, it's going to highlight all of our upcoming events. And we do have a good event coming up on September 30th. We would like to partner with the Eastwood Association Group, and they're going to be doing a cleanup at the Sheridan Park. You can't see it down there, but it's Saturday, September 30th, 11 to 1. They're going to do a cookout between 12 and 1.
There's food.
And there is food, and we would like to just show up in a fun way. So you can, we have Forward Point shirts. If you don't have one and you want to get one, come to me or Casey and we can get that for you. And again, let's just serve the community together. They ask that you bring like some gardening tools, things like that if you have it. So 11 to 1 on the 30th of September.
Please pray for good weather so we can
get
things done.
Good weather, absolutely. And talking about Better Together, it is not too late to join Life Group. They kicked off last week. How did it go for you?
Oh, my God, Life Group. I'm so happy that it's back. It was wonderful. It was really wonderful to connect with everybody, see what everybody's been doing over the summer, and just kind of, like I said, make that connection again. You know, it's great support.
Yes. We had a little collaboration right at the end of Life Group, and Stephen and Jimmy's Life Group got together. So you get to see different people throughout the week and just go deeper, talk about the message, share food. Again, please don't be afraid to ask for more help with that or get connected. You don't have to stay at one if it's not the right fit. Try it, one and done. If that doesn't work, try another one.
I think we have, 4 or 5 different ones you can try, so don't think you can just go to one.
You'll find a fit.
Yeah.
And we are going to be starting a new series this week. So let's do a video on that. Or next week.
Geez, seeing that, I'm like, is that on Netflix?
I don't know. Jimmy, I don't know where we're going with this. I don't do scary things.
Oh, I do.
So, well, that is exciting. Stranger Stories, please join us. That's going to be our upcoming series. And how fitting as we go into October. And Casey, what are we preparing for?
Well, hang on just one second, because we did want to say one thing about the not Life Groups, Better Together.
Okay.
Last week I had mentioned that there was bowling, that we were going to try to do a league. We've decided that we're not going to do a league, but if anybody just wants to go bowling, let me know. And we're going to come together and do that as a group.
Okay. All right. So what are we going to start preparing for October? It's a huge event.
Christmas presents?
No. So at the end of the month, we are going to join the Eastwood Extravaganza for what we know is Forest Hill Halloween. Love Handles is at the end of Forest Hill. Woo!
If you guys were there,
Fun stuff. So we've got some pictures up there. We had so much fun last year. We had 10 cars for the trunk or treat, and we probably gave out 1,000 cups of frozen yogurt. So you know what that means. We need your help. We need some people inside. We need people outside. We have a sign-up table in the back. I think Chazlet's going to be back there, and we also need candy. Lots of candy. We probably went over 1,000 pieces last year. There's that many people. It's crazy. They come rain, shine, or snow, I promise. So if you could be thinking as you're out shopping, grab a couple extra bags of candy and continue to bring it in, and we'll collect it here. You can also drop it off to me at Love Handles at any time. So if you're interested in that, there is a sign up. Start buying some candy if you can. That would be wonderful. But it is going to be a great time.
if you were there last year, you'll be surprised.
Yeah.
It was so much fun.
I had a couple of families just this past week come into Love Handles. Oh, I haven't been back since Halloween, but here I am now. And are you doing it again? So they're already gearing up. They're already excited to see the smiles on people's faces last year as I'm drenched in sweat, stuck in, if you know Love Handles, I was probably stuck in that back hallway the whole night, like didn't move, and it was crazy. But families were, they were so patient, so kind. They're like, I can't believe you're doing this. Wow. So it was a great time. We had a party. So if you want to be involved in that, that's on Halloween. But if you want to serve, do the sign in and someone get in contact with you. All right. And then, no. So we have a fun game to play again. We're going to do Boomers Say What?
Boomers.
All right. So let's get our first one. Moo Juice. That one's easy.
Boomers.
Milk? Okay. I think Jim got that. Woo. I don't know. What's your favorite kind of milk? I like chocolate milk, but only when it's from the Fair and Ice Cold. But yeah.
Well, yeah, that's different milk.
Right. Got some scratch. Money? All right, we all got that pretty quick. There we go. Got some money. Not for you guys.
Ain't that a bite?
Ain't that a bite? A bite of what? Weird? Let's see. Weird? Is that what we got? That's too bad. Weird, bad, could go hand in hand. Barking a knot?
Barking at a knot. I might have to join the Zoomers for this
I
one.
don't know about these boomers. What I don't know.
Okay, thank you. I'm not crazy.
All right, barking at a knot. Engage in foolish or futile activity like a dog barking at a tree. Jimmy, these are too tough. I don't know where you're pulling these from. Hacked off. Oh, cut off? Are we cutting something off? That's fun. Can we use an axe?
We have mad angry over here.
Angry, upset. I mean, you hack things when you're angry or upset. I don't know about you. All right, I think that was our last one. Thank you for playing again with us. This is the time we're going to release the kiddos. I think they're all back there.
Way back
Look
there.
Look at that
Go,
motley
go, go.
crew back there. Oh, my goodness. We're
Wow.
losing half the sanctuary.
There's a lot of people back
All right,
there.
all of you go back and have some fun.
We'll see you in a bit.
All right, good morning, Ford Point. How's everybody doing today? Yeah, great to see you all. I guess we don't have the video there this morning. I want to especially recognize, I don't know if anyone from Kidman is still around or if they're on their way up. Today is their first day. We have now childcare available for young little ones. So we're so grateful for our Kidman team to be able to expand and for all of you volunteering in that. I don't know where Kylie is, if she's anywhere around, but Kylie has been helping to grow our Kidman team, and tomorrow is her birthday. So she made it to 20. After years and years of working in Kidman, somehow she still was able to make it to 20, and we're super grateful for her and the ability to expand our Kidman team. We want to also just say awesome life groups this week. If you're able to join in a life group, we had a lot of fun. This was the Doyle life group at our house on Tuesday night. We had a lot of fun. This is one of the new life groups that kicked off. The Stevens had their life group. And it's a funny thing I noticed here about selfies, right? It seems like when you're taking a selfie, the closer you are to the camera, the more goofy you are, right? And then the further away you get, it's like, don't bother me. Yeah, I'm not, and you have the people in the middle with their smiles, and in the back, they're just like, hey, we're eating here. Don't interrupt our food. But they were a new life group starting there, so super glad to be able to have them launch that group. I heard great things happen from the Skinner's group and the Russells group and Lois's group. So again, if you haven't been able to find out any information or get involved in a life group, we would encourage you to jump into one of those. And everyone is just getting started. All of them this week, we're just kind of getting to know you and asking fun questions and having a good old time. So all the information is available for that. Not too late to jump in. So we are going to be wrapping up our series this morning on community. And we've been on this journey talking about the different things that help us to grow in God's love. And here's the, kind of upside down fact of growing in God's love is that you cannot grow in God's love by yourself. You cannot grow in God's love being an island unto yourself. You cannot grow in God's love by, having accumulated so many gold stars for perfect church attendance on a Sunday morning. None of those things and more knowledge are going to help you to grow in God's love. We've been on this journey to recognize that to grow in God's love, it actually means that we have to dive deeper into relationship with the people around us. That in fact, the depth of our relationships with the people around us actually is what determines if and how we are growing in God's love. I love math, and I kind of geeked out this week and came up with some graphs to help illustrate this thing. I know if you don't like math, I'm sorry for this, but here's the journey that we've been on, recognizing that the entry level, really the beginning place of growing in God's love is our weekly gathering. That first week, we talked about this idea that, Jesus, as was his custom, was committed to going to the synagogue and reading from the scriptures. And here, we want to be committed to an every week gathering of getting together with the people that are here. Not just like a once a month. That's the new average for church attendance in American culture, is once a month. But to grow in God's love, the reality is we have to see each other. We have to be around people, and we want to be committed to our weekly gathering that we have every week. And then if you're ready to say, I want to take my love and growth in my love for God to the next level, we talked about, then it's time to attend a life group. And as you get involved in these things, you're growing in God's love. In that second week, we talked about how Jesus really was the first life group leader with him and his disciples, and we really dove into that famous life group session that he had called the Last Supper, and all the things that he did to kind of break the molds for what following God meant. And he says, guys, you're here arguing about who's going to be the greatest, and he just starts taking off clothes and washing feet and blowing up their perception of what it means to actually grow in God's love. And then last week, we looked at this idea that, we don't want to just attend life group, right? Like we can get super religious about, I go to Sunday morning, I go to my once a week life group, and it just can become 2 days a week. But really, the New Testament church demonstrated for us this example of really living out a life group mindset. That how do we take that once a week thing that we have where we're getting together with people and we're being open and honest and we're vulnerable and we're breaking bread, and how do we make that and turn that into a life group? A lifestyle. We don't want to just attend life group, but we want to live out life group. And in the book of Acts, we're told how the New Testament church, that they would meet every day in the synagogues. And then from there, they would go home and break bread and have fellowship together with people. And man, we've gotten so far away where we kind of oriented our life around this, picture perfect, cookie cutter. I got my Sunday mornings. Maybe I'll give God a weekly life group or maybe a midweek service is something that you've been a part of growing up. And it's very regimented and calculated. Where we see in the New Testament church this idea and its environment where thousands were being added to their number every day. It came out of this dynamic growth in God's love. A growth in God's love that came as they were committed to each other in this weekly gathering, in this idea of weekly life group, and then just taking that, we want to make this a part of our daily life. How do we not just attend life group, but live out life group? And here's the beautiful thing about this. No matter where you are in your relationship with God, you may be here this morning and you say, you know what, I don't have a relationship with God. And if that's your story, I just want you to first know that we are so glad that you're here. But here's what I believe, that you can be anywhere in your relationship with God. I don't believe in God or I'm fully in love with God. And you can partake in this journey of growing in God's love. And forward point, if you're here this morning and you do believe in Jesus as your Savior, here's the amazing thing. I believe that somebody who doesn't have a relationship with Jesus can grow in their love for God, and inside of them, no matter how far or how bad their life may be or how anti-faith and religion they may be, I believe that the process of growing in God's love acts like a tank inside of them that begins to fill, that they will fall in love with Jesus by going through this process of growing in God's love. So that's why we're so emphatic about it for us as followers of Christ, but we also believe and invite you this morning, if you're here and you don't have a relationship with Jesus, any of these things you are welcome to do and be a part of, and we want you there. And we're so glad that you're here. But here's what it looks like. If you say, my faith is just a matter of Sunday morning and that's what I give, right? My growth in God's love flatlines. There's no growth. This is, you may have all sorts of smarts, you may have all sorts of knowledge, you may have a perfect attendance record, but if you just kind of stay at this bare minimum weekly gathering, then you are not part of this community that God has called us to be in. You're a part of Forward Point, sure. We're glad that you're here. But God's called us to be more than just Forward Point. He's called us to be a community of people who are growing in God's love. And that's who we want to be. And if you've never gone deeper than just this maybe weekly or every once in a while kind of rhythm, then you're missing out on a potential relationship that, man, speaking from experience, will blow your socks off. Because what's happening in church culture here in America in 2023, what we have is a lot of people who say, I've been a Christian for, 15, 20 years. And they think that carries some kind of weight or that, 20 years of experience gives them some kind of clout. But really what we have is about, a whole country full of people who have been one-year-old Christians for 20 years of their life. And they've never graduated beyond just some of the expectations of going to some place on a Sunday morning on a somewhat regular basis. And that's why Christian culture has lost a lot of its influence in our American culture, because it's weak sauce. But we believe that as we challenge ourselves and we urge each other and we invite each other to grow in God's love, that we can be part of this community that, just like in the New Testament church, grows on the daily, grows on the regular. And that's what we want to be a part of, to get to that community. And if, the invitation this morning is to go and be able to take this world that we live in, this kind of post-Christian culture that we live in, and we believe that as we start living out this community lifestyle of growing together in God's love, we're actually, acting as fertilizer to the soil to create here and even Eastwood and Central New York and Syracuse this kind of fertile Jesus movement soil. Because I believe, just like we live in an environment where everybody's grumpy and religion is seen as an enemy, that is creating the foundation for an environment where God can do an awesome thing here in our community, and I want to be part of that. Man, it's easy. You go down south and you throw up a megaphone and a Bible, and you can start a church right there on the corner, and everybody loves you. You try that here in New York, and you're going to be probably flogged out of town, It's not going to be received very well. So what does it look like for us to go and pursue community? But if we're real for a second, the reality is that pursuing community and being a part of people's lives and growing deeper in relationship with people is kind of messy, okay? Let's just, put it out there. You guys are all kind of messy, all right? But you're in good company because I'm also kind of messy. But when you pursue this, here's the reality of what it feels like sometimes, right? Sometimes it feels like, man, the best of times, and it feels like the worst of times. Because maybe somebody said something about you, somebody you thought you were close with, somebody you thought was your friend, and maybe they did something. And all of a sudden you feel like, man, this faith thing is not for me. Not because, God wasn't who he said he was, but because somebody else in the community did something and it hurt. And it was painful. And the reality is, I'm looking at, 20 years plus in ministry, and man, there's nothing that has been more hurting than the experiences that I've had being in ministry around church. And this is what it feels like. The highest of highs, but also some of the lowest of lows. And we got to go into this recognizing that, we're going to make mistakes. We got to have some grace for each other. But we can't deflect and put that on God and say, God, I'm walking away from what you've called me to do and being part of this community, the church. We don't want to use it as an excuse to say, I'm out. We want to say, all right, I'm going to grow in my relationship, grow deeper in my relationship with the people around me, and thus grow in my love for God. And trust that through those times when I'm hurt, trust that through those times where it's hard and it's painful, that there is an internal work that is being done. That God is forming inside of you through the processes of some of the things you experience on a Sunday morning, or some of the things you're going to experience in a life group, or some of the things that you're going to experience as we talk about serving this morning. That there is an internal formation that's happening in your life that makes all the difference. That at some point in the future, you'll look back and, man, I don't even recognize that person anymore because of the formation that has been happening. Don't settle for just going through the motions, Forward Point. Don't settle for just, okay, I'll go to life group and I'll go to Sunday and I'll serve, but I'm going to not get honest. I'm not going to get vulnerable. I'm not going to share. I'm not going to open up my heart to the people around because I've been hurt and it's painful and it's messy. I'm not about that life. Don't settle for flatlining in your love for God. Because just going to those things and making your body physically available to those things is not the process, is not the gateway to the formation of growing in God's love. It's when you turn yourself over to the process and allow your heart to be bare and vulnerable with the people around you. And it gets harder and harder, Forward Point. The more you go up in this process, it's going to get harder and harder, and it's going to ask more and more of you, but it gets more and more rewarding. It gets to the place where, man, I'm more than happy of saying I'm willing to do that for the rest of my life because I have not found anything better. And I've done my fair share of looking. So just warning you now, Forward Point, our love here as the leadership and as life group leaders and as ministry leaders, it drives us. Our love for you, it drives us to say, you know what, we love you just as you are, but we're going to be constantly urging you and inviting you into deeper relationship with the people around you. Because we believe that is the process of discipleship, of becoming more like Christ, of growing deeper in your love for God. So this morning we're going to dive into this idea of what does it look like now to serve? to both serve in, maybe a weekly setting on a Sunday morning, but also to have a lifestyle of serving, one that is something we exhibit in everything that we do. If you go to our website, you'll see under what we believe, we have a list of different values. And one of the values that we have is this idea that we value the passionate volunteer over the paid professional. And we probably all know what it's like to be a paid professional. There's a good chance that you here this morning are a paid professional somewhere here in Central New York, that you get a paycheck based on the work that you do. I was a paid professional for many years of my life. Man, probably no more exciting than the time that I spent working for Apple. I had just fallen in love with the company and gotten my first Apple computer, and I just thought, man, this place is amazing. I was in between ministry positions looking for a job, and I said, wouldn't it be fun to work at the Apple store? I thought I was going to start a DJ business, so that's why we got this Apple computer. It was going to be JD's DJ service, right? I know, you like that? I know. You can't steal it unless your name starts with a J and a D, all right? So I find out about submitting my application for working there, and man, I can't tell you how excited I was when I got an interview for Apple, right? So I go to the mall here at Destiny, and my scheduled time, and as I get there, something weird starts to, kind of pique my curiosity as I get there, and there's all sorts of other people there in front of the store at the same time I was supposed to be there, right? I'm thinking, man, these interviews must be going really long, or I don't know what these people are here for. And what I found out was it was one giant, big group interview, right? Have you ever been part of a group interview? I mean, you go into it, and you're thinking, man, I got to, rise and show myself above all this group of 25 other people, or else I'm not going to get invited back. And I'm like, I'm new to the company. I don't really know a lot about Apple stuff, Apple history. But I just went through the process, and I spoke from my heart, and I did some things that were just part of my natural creativity. And wouldn't you know, I got a call back, and I wound up getting hired at Apple. But they had no trust in my ability to sell or fix Apple products, so they had a position called the concierge, where all you did was welcome and greet people at the front door, right? So when I said I worked at Apple, at the beginning, it wasn't real glamorous, because I was just hey, welcome to the Apple store. Oh, yeah, that's over here, right? Just pointing people and welcoming people. Man, try doing that for, 4 and 6 hour shifts at a time, just standing there directing people. It wasn't very glamorous. But then eventually I worked myself up to being a sales and then full-time sales. And then Apple created this new position in sales called expert. These are like the best of the best of the sales people. And I applied, and I became one of the first experts in Syracuse, New York. All of a sudden, right, I was being well compensated for this idea of selling Apple computers, of being an expert, a paid professional. And then eventually I would go on to become a genius at expert, and I still have to go through some counseling as a result of the big head I have from the titles that I had there at the Apple store. Right, but this idea of where we understand what it means to be a paid professional. Like, you work on your resume, and you put all sorts of embellishing words in there, right, to make yourself sound maybe better or wiser or smarter or more skilled at something. That's kind of what our culture trains us to do do whatever you have to do to get the job, to get the paycheck that you want, to get the next position that you want. I remember when I was applying for my first ministry position, right? I just was going through online and found the listing, and then they wanted to have my resume, and then they wanted me to record myself preaching to send to them, and all these things that I had to do to be able to qualify for this position. Now, being a paid professional also has a lot of perks to it, right? When I was interviewing for this church, as I got through some of the initial interviews, eventually they sent me down to Florida to interview at this church, and they put me up at the beach in this beach house. I mean, it's kind of fun when you're a paid professional and people are trying to wine and dine you, right? Like, if I could just figure out a way to be a full-time, paid professional that gets wined and dined all the time, right? Like, sign me up. That sounds like the place to be. Like, when I became a genius at the Apple store, they paid for me to go to California to do 3 weeks of training to become a genius at Apple. Man, can you imagine 3 weeks of your life, all expenses paid in California? I could just eat whatever I wanted to, go wherever I wanted to on the beach. Man, it was the best days. So I thought, living as a paid professional. But here's the other side of being a paid professional, right? When you're a paid professional, there's always some other paid professional who's kind of eyeing for your job, right? Who kind of wants to take your position, who thinks that they are maybe better than you, or they got more skills than you, more education than you do, and deserve to be where you're at. So they're going to take it over. If you've ever had any kind of paid professional under you, you understand what that means. There's people who think that they know it all, and they're gunning for your job. And that's not a fun environment to be working in. Now contrast that with the other side of this idea of what does it look like to be a passionate volunteer? Right? What does it look like to live for something, to do something that you enjoy and that you love so much that any other person would probably be getting paid for it, but because you love it so much and you're dedicated to it so much, you say, you know what, I'm willing to do this for free. I'll do this whenever you need, and I'll do it for free because I love it so much. It means so much to me to be able to do that. Now, that's not to be confused with volunteers, right? Or not to be confused with community service. There's a lot of people who have to do things because they have to do community service. I won't have anybody raise hands here if that's you. But we get calls all the time like, Jimmy, Stephen, do you have anything that so-and-so can do because they have to do some volunteer hours? Sometimes it's for good reasons, like they're trying to, bolster their college application, or they want to get on National Honor Society. But sometimes it's because they've done something bad. And now they have this obligation to do some kind of community service. And I can tell you, there is a visual difference between the two types of people. If you've ever seen those two types of people working, someone who's a passionate volunteer and someone who is on community service hours, man, the way that they work is different. Their demeanor is different. The passion is different. And it could be very easy for us here at Ford Point to kind of delve into this culture of just having a bunch of volunteers who just kind of go through motions and just kind of do things because that's what you're supposed to do or because you have to. I know for me, there was a time in Indiana, I was working at a church, and there was this organization called Remedy Live. And what they would do is they would be a text messaging service that if you were dealing with some kind of crisis in your life, or maybe some kind of mental issue in your life, depression or thoughts of suicide, you could text in, and there would be somebody there on the other line to just talk with you. But what worked with my schedule and what this ministry really needed is some of these late night hours. They had these shifts from midnight to 4, and then from 4 a.m. to 8 a.m., right? And I thought, you know what, I could do that. I love technology. I can work those hours a couple days a week. And what I found is when I volunteered for those hours, those shifts, man, one, when you're tired, you are not a very passionate volunteer, right? Downright grumpy. And I got super short with people. People are like texting in like, it's the end of the world. I want to kill myself. My life's over. And I'm just like, suck it up, buttercup, right? Get over yourself. Go to bed. That's where I want to be. And I had some of the leaders of the ministry kind of reach out to me and like, Jimmy, I don't know that you are handling these with the grace and love of Jesus that we are looking for in this ministry, right? My bad. But I know what it's like. I know what it's like sometimes to have some kind of task that, you really wouldn't choose, you really wouldn't want to do, that you're forced to do. And here at Ford Point, our goal is to be very intentional, to walk through some processes to help people not just fill a hole that we may have here at Ford Point. You may need to do that for a period of time, but we want to be very intentional to say, man, we have some things that we're doing, but what is the shape that God created you to be, and how can we help you live out that shape? And that's what we want to be about here at Ford Point. So we're going to structure Ford Point around this idea of how paid professionals. When it comes time to maybe have a youth ministry, man, we want to have a youth ministry at some point. I spent many years of my life working in youth ministry to say, all right, who do we have here at Ford Point that we can raise and that we can train to do it versus just looking for some kind of paid professional that may swoop in for a year or 2 or 3 years and then move on to their next bigger, better deal. How do we develop, how do we create a culture here at Ford Point where we have passionate volunteers? That's our heart. That's what we want to do. We call it serving here at Ford Point because you were created to serve, not be a servant. Okay, we're not looking for slaves here, but you're called to be to serve. It's not just a have to, but it's a I get to. I want to. And this is something that, someone else would maybe normally be paid for, maybe they went to school for, but this morning you say, man, I love it so much. I think it's so important that I'm willing to do it for free. I'm willing to commit to see it happen here at Ford Point, because Ford Point, growing together in God's love, happens by serving one another, not by being served. And if you're kind of stuck in that first entry level of, hit and miss or maybe even consistent Sunday morning gathering, and you're content just hanging out there, the reality is you're content with just being served. There are all sorts of people who get together here early, some as early as 5, 6 o'clock in the morning, and start making coffee and start setting up tables and start peeling off some of the crazy stuff that happened here throughout the week off the walls, okay? A lot of people working really hard to serve you so that it might be the best possible experience here on a Sunday morning. That's what they've committed to. And if you're fine just kind of hanging out, not growing in God's love and just chilling in that first little quadrant there, then the reality is this morning, you're a little bit more content with being served and not serving one another. And Paul wanted to make sure in the New Testament church, he said, you know what, we got to set the goalpost here of what it looks like to have this as part of your culture. So he wrote in his church that he started in Galatia to the Galatians, he had this to say in Galatians 5:13. He says, you know what, church, it is absolutely clear. You know what, community, it is absolutely clear that God has called you to a free life. Each and every one of you were created for a purpose, on purpose. Part of that is to live a free life. That's not something that's new with America. America kind of borrowed that to say, God created man and man to be free. So this predates America. This is God saying that you were created to be free. And whenever I think about the term freedom and that idea, the first thing that comes to mind is Braveheart. I don't know if I have any other Braveheart fans here in the theater this morning, but it reminds me of, William Wallace there riding on his horse and his all blue paint and everything, right? And all the guys are super crazy, and he's trying to get the other people to fight for their freedom, right? And he's riding on his horse, and he's asking them, what will you do with your freedom, right? Only he says it a lot more like movingly and passionately than I did. But the challenge is the same. Like, you have freedom. You were created to be free. So what will you do with that freedom? Paul's asking, life with Jesus introduces you to this freedom. You were created for this kind of freedom. But what are you doing with that freedom? Because what you're doing with that freedom actually determines how free you actually are. Because he goes on. He says, just make sure that you don't use this freedom as an excuse to do whatever you want, and in so destroy your freedom. Paul's saying to the Galatians, you were created for freedom. So what are you doing with that freedom? Church? Community? Because, and here's the warning, what happens is most people use it to make an excuse to do whatever they want, and thus undermine that freedom. Actually create for themselves bondage. You see, this morning, Ford Point, there's a good chance, I know a lot of you, and I can only imagine that the percentage is the same for the group is that there's probably a lot of bondage represented here this morning. Okay, no shame, no condemnation, but there's probably areas in your life, there's areas in my life, in some points in my life more so than others, but there's probably some bondage that you can look at, some areas where you're not free. Right? And God wants all of our life to be free, to be at this place where you and I are living as passionate volunteers, as serving one another. Living this life of, man, I'm doing this not because I have to, but because I get to, because I want to. And if that fades, or if that's non-existent in your life this morning, then there's a chance that you're falling into this warning that Paul gives that you're using your freedom to do whatever you want. It may be something illegal, it may be something bad, or it doesn't even have to be. But if you're using it to do it what you want and not to serve one another, Paul says you're actually destroying that freedom that you were created for. And man, I know a lot of people that as they've entered into a lifestyle of just serving more and giving their life over more and consumed by just whatever they can do here at Forward Point or in other churches, just pouring themselves into serving other people, that has been part of their freedom story. That has been part of their redemption story, that God has used that process in their life to bring them out of their addiction, to bring them out of their bondage, to bring healing after a broken relationship in their life. And we've been given an opportunity for freedom. Church, community. And more often than not, man, we have settled to exchange it for bondage in our life. Maybe not an intentional choice, but by simply abdicating our role and our calling to serve one another, that's what is accumulating in our life. And you see it played out in all sorts of different areas. In people's diets, there's some people who they're in bondage to what they eat. There's some people who are in bondage to this little device that they hold in their hands, and they spend more time scrolling than maybe interacting with the people around. There are some people who are in bondage to gaming, and they get their release by just sitting in a chair and looking at a screen and cutting themselves off from the world and entering into this fantasy land. Some people in bondage to drugs and the feeling that they get, and it brings the release, and it helps them escape from whatever they're feeling. And they're in bondage to drugs or alcohol or pornography. There's some people who are in bondage to anger, and the minute thing happens and they fly off the handle. And that's their way of releasing what's going on inside of them. And Paul offers and says, man, you were made for so much more than that. You were made for freedom. So what are you doing with that freedom? Let me give you a little insight, because if you don't actively live out this freedom, you're destroying that freedom. So what I want you to do then is rather use your freedom to serve one another in love, because that's how freedom grows. Right? It takes an active participation to serve one another to allow freedom to grow in your life. However, it doesn't take anything for bondage to grow in your life. That is going to be the natural state of affairs if we don't allow ourselves to use our freedom to serve one another. To serve one another in love, right? Love, passionate volunteer. Now, I probably should be getting paid for this, but I love it so much. We need this so much. I can't imagine a world without it so much that I'm willing to do it for free. And that attitude, that heart acts like the fertilizer to freedom. Helps you to grow in your freedom. And I believe, Forward Point, that more than anything else is what's missing for sure in the world, but definitely in our part of the country, here in the Northeast and in central New York and in Syracuse. As I look out and I see all sorts of just miserable people, and it's like walking through swamp or quicksand, and it's just like, God, what is wrong with this world? And we're living in bondage. We're a people that were created for freedom, but what we chose to do with that freedom is to live in bondage. And Paul says the key to growing in your freedom is to serve one another in love. That's part of the fertilizer to create this soil, fertile soil of a Jesus kind of movement here in our area. Because if you don't, then your freedom dies. It doesn't just maintain and you get to flatline. It actually dies and decays. So serve one another in love. In the book of Acts, kind of things begin to happen. And the Jesus movement kind of things in a community begin to happen. And thousands being added to their number daily begin to happen. It happens through this fertilizer of serving one another in love and growing in our freedom. The bondage begins to lose its grip in your life when you serve one another. You probably still need to do some counseling. You may need AA or SA or any of the other groups. You may need to go to counseling. But if you want to add fertilizer to finding freedom in your life, serve one another in love. This is the key. And I'll tell you, I spent most of my life growing up reading books, and I'd read these stories of people who moved into inner cities, and they would, as groups, move into apartment buildings, and they just would live out the life of following Jesus, and they would meet their neighbors and begin to just love on them. And I thought, man, this is so cool. That's really the heart behind missionaries. A missionary is someone who, has a heart for a country, a different place in the world. And they say, I'm willing to sell everything I have here and just give myself over to this place somewhere else in the world, and I'm just going to give my life there. And, I never felt called to anywhere in a different country. But that idea of people moving into these apartment buildings, into these neighborhoods, that really just that is so cool. I would love to be that free to be able to do that. And in preparing for this, I started to realize, man, we're not in an apartment complex, but here we are in Eastwood. And don't get me wrong, to follow Jesus and to find freedom and to grow in your love, you don't have to move to Eastwood, okay? But it's funny because there's all sorts of people who are moving to Eastwood. Right? And it's not because there's something in the froyo, as some of you guys would like to accuse us of. We didn't lace the popcorn with anything before you got here this morning. All right? I make no mentions about the coffee. But the reality is that when one person decides to grow in their freedom, that's attractive. Right, that's something you say, man, I could get behind that. I want to be a part. I want my life to live for something like that. I saw it demonstrated in the life of Stephen and the Skinner family, so we said, oh, we're moving into Eastwood. We've been working on Forward Point now for years and years, and then now all of a sudden other people are saying, that's something we want to be a part of. We'll move from Mattydale into Eastwood. We'll move from East Syracuse into Eastwood. Some of you already lived here in Eastwood. The Wylands, they bought a business in Eastwood, and they're like, wow, there's a lot of Eastwood people at that church over there. Maybe we should be part of that church. And they started coming here to Forward Point because they loved being a part. They wanted to be a part of something that is in this community that they love. And I don't know, years from now, it may be something that we, go to other parts of Sarah. I don't know. But what I know now is we're going to pursue serving one another in love right here in our streets. We're going to invite you and urge you to do that and help us. If you have something you want to do in your community, if it's not in Eastwood, then we want to be a part of how do we help you and rally support for you to do that. Because what we've seen almost non-intentionally, is that people are willing to sell their RVs and sell their future plans for a life given over to being a passionate volunteer, to finding freedom, to serving one another in love. And I can't promise you a whole lot, Forward Point, but I will promise you that will continue to be what we fight for and strive for, what we form for, and what we live for. And almost like the frog in the boiling water, if you didn't take a moment to pause and see that is happening here in Eastwood, just take a moment now to realize that that's exactly what is happening. That we're growing together in God's love by people saying, I'm choosing to pursue freedom by serving one another in love. And this really starts to take a multiplication effect as it goes from maybe a handful of people here at Forward Point to maybe half a Forward Point, or man, what would it even look like for 100% of Forward Point people to be pursuing freedom and serving one another in love? We believe it could have eternal effects on your life, but also on the community around us as we pursue this. You know, every week, probably the hardest part when I think about putting together some kind of conversation to have here on a Sunday morning, I always shoot to aim and talk from some kind of story, like narrate it in some kind of story that's going on in my life or in the life of someone else. And usually it takes me a long time, week to week, because I want it to be moving, I want it to be impactful. But this week, man, I just had all sorts of stories that I could choose from because so many people have chosen this lifestyle of serving one another in love. And KidMin is a perfect example, man. I got a text earlier this week on Facebook, a message, and someone reached out to Forward Point to say, hey, we love Forward Point. We really would love to be a part of it, but we have a crazy 2-year-old crackhead, right, that doesn't allow us to focus or to concentrate during the Sunday morning gathering. So we're probably just going to be apart online for a while. But hey, do you have any hope of having some kind of KidMin for that age in the future? And in my mind, I'm thinking, well, yes, of course we want that, but I don't know how close we are to that. So I reached out to Kylie. I said, Kylie, is this something that we are, planning for? Is this something that we're ever going to be able to have? And she texted me back just a few minutes later, all excited. She said, yes, actually this week. And I'm thinking, this week? How in the world did we get to this week? And I don't know that we're about to, branch off into this larger KidMin ministry here. But I was so excited to be able to message this family back and say, guess what? This week we're actually going to have some, people that have straitjackets to watch over the 2-year-old crackheads, right? And some younger. And all they responded with was a heart. And now there's someone else who's able to be a part of that process of committing to a weekly gathering. So then maybe they can go to a life group, and then maybe they can live out life group, and then maybe they can serve themselves because someone else said, I'm going to pursue freedom. Actually, a group of people who decided that over the course of a month, we'll take turns and we can begin to provide this here at Forward Point. Right? It's awesome. People launching and saying, I'm going to choose to leave the comforts of a life group that I love and where everybody already knows each other to say, I'm going to start my own. Man, I love Cherry and Glenn. I don't know if you guys probably never had a chance to meet them because every Sunday morning they are committed to being up in KidMin and work with the older kids. They commit to every single week to do that. But here's the thing about Cherry and Glenn and their commitment to do that. They've been a part of our life group last year and now part of the Stevenses. But last year they would come to our life group and they would come with different sheets of printouts from watching our gathering later on in the week so that they could be prepared for the life group. You see, a lot of times we think about serving and we think about maybe an opportunity to kind of check out and not have to listen to the boring guy up on stage, right? But these guys said, we're committed to these kids up here every single week, but we're also committed to growing together in God's love. So we want to be hearing what you're hearing every week so we can talk about it every week in life group. And they would come with a handful of printouts of papers of the different things that stood out to them. Because though they're not here right now in a Sunday morning, I guarantee you, hi, Terry and Glenn. They're going to watch it in a couple days. Because they're growing in their freedom. And they want to do whatever they can to serve one another in love, a passionate volunteer. So Paul says, that's how freedom grows. For everything we know about God's word is summed up in a single sentence. Community, church, he says, it's to love one another's as you love yourself. That's an act of true freedom. It's not a new idea that Paul is laying out here, but he's simply urging his people to follow the plan that he's following, that Jesus laid out, to love God with all your heart and to love your neighbor and one another in love. And in that, you've reached this pinnacle of growing in God's love where now all of a sudden it creates the soil where someone else now is able to participate and maybe enter into this, wow, man, what's going on in your life? How's that happening? Well, there's this group of really crazy people who get together in a theater. Why don't you come check it out and come be a part of it? And now all of a sudden they start this journey, and they are maybe attending a life group. And maybe the next year they go from just attending a life group where now they're inviting their neighbors over to their house to have community and share about their life. And they're living out this life group lifestyle, and then they begin to serve. And it's this cycle that just repeats itself. Only, Forward Point, if we pursue freedom, what will you do with your freedom? Because if you don't, then it just atrophies into bondage. So this morning, part of our urging and inviting of you this morning is we have some tables set up in the back as you leave, right in the foyer there, so we can make it as awkward and uncomfortable as possible. You're not going to be able to get away without seeing some of the different ministries represented here at Forward Point. And that might be just the first step is to go out there and you're going to meet the leader, maybe the tech team or the kidmin or Stephen with the band or the first impressions or all the things that we got going on here. Just learn about what they do, what the rhythm is like, what the schedule's like. Maybe say, hey, can I shadow? We believe in this one and done mentality where maybe you try it once and you say, whoa, crazy 2-year-old crackheads, not for me, okay? I got to do something else. But do something else to serve one another in love. And the team came up with this idea. They have a little bingo card, and if you get everyone to fill out your card that you saw all the tables, we have this nice little Forward Point bag made by our friends at Postnet there for us. So we'd love to give you one of those, and only if you go around and get your bingo card filled out. Next week, they'll be free for everybody. But this week, if you want it today and be one of the first, early adopters, you got to go through the process today, all right? Because there'll be people this. I know you guys. Some of you are going to go online. You're going to try to sell your Forward Point bag before everyone else gets theirs for big bucks. Now's the chance, all right, to get that done. But again, we're so serious about this. If you're here this morning and you say, man, I want to dive deeper into this idea of my shape. What's my shape? The way that God created me. It's just a simple acronym. It stands for what's your spiritual gifts, your heart, your abilities, your personality, your experience. We believe those things combine together to create this sweet spot that we realize it may not even be represented yet here at Forward Point. That there may be all sorts of different ministries, future ministries of Forward Point represented here today that are started because you say, you know what, I'm going to text the word shape to our text line. And that's going to send you a link to go through and take a free shape experience test. It's going to ask you all sorts of questions and have you go through things. And it's going to let me know that you did that. And then I'm going to reach out to you and say, hey, let's meet together and let's talk about it. Let's talk about these things that you're passionate about, your spiritual gifts, the things that come natural for you, your abilities, the way that your personality was created. Let's talk about your experiences and how all these things work together, and we can be some support for you to maybe start something here at Forward Point, here in the world that's never been seen before. What happens because someone who said, you know what, I'm tired of just being on the sidelines. I'm tired of maybe doing it in a way that it's just because I have to. And this morning, I'm going to pursue freedom and serve one another in love with the way that God created me, because he created me on purpose, for a purpose. And be a part of the fertilizer that begins to create this fertile soil for a Jesus kind of movement here in the Northeast and in New York and in Syracuse and in Eastwood. I want to be a part of that, and I would love to have you be a part of that with me. God, we're so grateful that you were the first to demonstrate this lifestyle of selfless love, to pursue us while we were of no use to you whatsoever. Absolutely no good. Absolutely nothing in the world could we offer you or give to you or surprise you or wow you with. But still you said, you know what, I'm going to take the first step. I'm going to take the initiative to move into the neighborhood, to be among the people who are upside down and got it all whacked up and using it for their own personal gain. And I'm just going to go through this ninja life of going to the synagogue, as was the custom of this life group with the disciples, and ultimately serving with your life. And for us, it was the spark that created for us this life of freedom that we now can experience. So this morning, God, I pray that there would be just a sense of your presence everywhere to ask and to look and to examine us from the inside out of what are we doing with that freedom that you created us for? What are we doing with that freedom that you designed for us to have? Is there any of it left, or are we this morning so consumed with things that don't matter in your kingdom and in your economy? God, would you help us to come back to a place this morning? Come back to a place this morning where maybe even as a 20-year-old Christian, we say, you know what, I need to repent. I need to turn from my ways and my views of how it's done, and I'm going to turn back towards your higher ways for my life, and I'm going to pursue freedom. And it's not just going to be freedom for myself, but it's going to be pursuing freedom for my family. And it's not just even for my family, it's going to be pursuing freedom because the impact is going to have on my community, my street, my neighbors. I'm pursuing freedom for all of them. I'm pursuing a lifestyle of growing so much freedom that just bubbles up over me and onto all the people around me. And as a result of that, people are added daily. Not to Forward Point, not to First United, not to, whatever church it's not, but people are added daily to being caught in bondage, to being under the weight of bondage and experience freedom. Help us to pursue that this morning, this afternoon, this evening, tomorrow, this lifestyle. Help us to grow in our love for you together. Help us to be a community.
No place that I'd rather be. No place I would rather be. No place I would rather here in your love, here in your love. No place I would rather be. No place I would rather be. No place I would rather be than here in your love, here in your love. So set a fire down in my soul. I can't contain, that I can't control. I want more of you, God. I want more of you, God. Set a fire down in my soul that I can't contain, that I can't control. I want more of you, God. So much more of you, God. Send us more of you. We want more of you. Fill us up, Lord. There's no place I would rather be. No place I would rather be. There's no place I would rather be. Here in your love, here in your love. No place I would rather be. There's no place I would rather be. There's no place I would rather be. Here in your love, here in your love. Set a fire down in my soul that I can't contain, that I can't control. I want more of you, God. I want more of you, God. Set a fire down in my soul that I can't contain, that I can't control. I want more of you, God. I want more of you, God. I want more, I want more, I want more of you. Fill us up, fill us up with more of you. I want more, I want more, I want more, I want more. So let's pour it out, pour it out. We want more, we want more, we want more, we want more, Lord. Pour it out, pour it out. We want more, we want more, we want more, we want more. Pour it out, pour it out. Fill us up, fill us up, fill us up, so we overflow wherever we go. Jesus, Holy Spirit, pour out this community. We want more, we want more, we want more, so pour it out. Set a fire down in my soul that I can't contain, I can't control. I want more of you, God. I want more of you, God. Yeah, yeah, more of you. More of you. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus.
worship you. I worship you. You are here working in this place. I worship you. I worship you. Sing it again. You are here moving in our midst. I worship you. I worship you. You are here working in this place. I worship you. I worship you. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. Sing it again. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. You are here, touching every heart. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, healing every heart. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, turning lives around. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, mending every heart. I worship you. I worship you. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. And you are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. Let's sing it again. Oh, you are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. Oh, you are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. 'Cause that is who you are. 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 Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel that you're working, you never stop working. You never stop working. Even when I don't see that you're working, even when I don't feel that you're working, you never stop working. You never stop working. Even when I don't see that you're working, even when I don't feel that you're working, you never stop working. You never stop, even when I don't see that you're working, even when I don't feel that you're working, you never stop working. You never waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. Waymaker, waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. Oh, you are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. 'Cause that is who you are. 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 That is who you are.
How powerful that we have a God that is the Waymaker. Casey, what's something that stood out to you this morning?
Well, this morning, first, if I get this wrong, I'm sorry, but Numbers and I don't get along, and they went on strike for me a long time ago. I believe it's 1 Corinthians 16:14, and that is to do all things through love. You know, and I've tried to live my life like that. Being a mother of 3 kids, I'm like, I love you. You know, so that's kind of where that all brought me today.
All right, I'll try to be short and sweet like me. I think back to, you know.
Are you a pineapple? Stand tall, wear a crown, be sweet.
Whatever. So I remember Easter of not this year, but last year. And I got here early, and I remember looking down the aisle, and they were praying, so we were kind of standing off to the side. And at the end, it was my first time seeing the huddle. And if you don't know, we pray at 9:30 every morning, and then we get together, do this big huddle, and we ask, what time is it? And it's game time. So I remember thinking, I want to be a part of that. Like, how do I get a part of that, right? So I would quickly start coming to church early, start shadowing Victoria, learning all of her jobs, and we know how the story ended, but because I did that, I got to go into that role. And now I come in on a Sunday, and I'm like, wait, there's no popcorn for me to make. And other people have been able to step up. So it's been so cool to see that transition, see my servant's heart go. And 6 months ago, I was like, I don't want to give up my popcorn. What do you mean? I can't do that. That's like mine. And there's been other people so graciously that have been able to step up and step into those roles, and we get to serve together. So I just reflected on my journey that happened so quickly here, and it's exciting.
Yeah, I just want to clarify, did I get those numbers right? Ah, thank you.
Yay, we got a Bible scholar after all.
Anyway, so we have 4 ways that you can help out here. You know, the ways to give, you can give in person, online, through the app, and on social media.
Yes.
So please, we'd love for you to be a part of some of the things we got going on here. And don't forget that app, the Church Center app is in the App Store.
Yes. And again, if you are new here today, we want to thank you so much for stepping in to a new community of faith. Don't forget to download our Church Center app. Many ways to get plugged in there, and to find out more information.
Yeah, we also have a prayer team. If anybody needs or feels they need to pray, we will have a prayer team in the back. And again, many thanks to the Palace Theater for letting us use this space on Sunday mornings. So we'd like to pay back a little bit, make sure the place is all cleaned up. So if you have a few minutes, you can meet us back there by the closet to get some brooms and stuff and get this place back into shape. We'd appreciate it.
To go back to the prayer team, Joe, who is our prayer team leader, he got a word from God last night, something about someone's shoulder. So if you know someone, or if you are somebody with shoulder pain, stop back there. He would like to pray with you this morning, and invite you to go and talk to him about that, and let the Lord work in that this morning. we want to lastly, please just stick around, give us 5 minutes of your time, learn about what we have going on here, different ways to serve. I promise you won't regret it. It's always fun. And last but not least, do not forget your children today. We are not full-time babysitters. And we're going to continue with one last song.
Have a great week, everybody.
Oh, there's nothing, sing with you if you know it, better than you. Oh, there's nothing better than you, Lord. There's nothing, nothing is better than you. Oh, there's nothing better than you. Oh, there's nothing better than you, Lord. There's nothing, nothing is better than you. Sing with us. I search the world. I search the world. You couldn't feel me. A man's empty praise, the treasures that fade, never enough. But you came along, put me back together, and every desire is now satisfied here in your love. Sing with us. Oh, there's nothing better than you. Oh, there's nothing better than you, Lord. There's nothing, nothing is better than you. Sing it again. Oh, there's nothing better than you. Oh, there's nothing better than you, Lord. There's nothing, nothing is better than you. I'm not afraid. No, I'm not afraid to show you my weakness, my failures and flaws. Or do you see them all and you still call me friend? 'Cause the God of the mountain is the God of the valley. There's not a place of mercy and grace will find me again. Oh, there's nothing better than you. Oh, there's nothing better than you. Lord, there's nothing, nothing is better than you. Sing it again. Oh, there's nothing better than you. Oh, there's nothing better than you, Lord. There's nothing, nothing is better than you. You turn mourning to dancing. You give beauty for ashes. You turn shame into glory. You're the only one who can. Let's sing that again. You turn mourning to dancing. You give beauty for ashes. You turn shame into glory. You're the only one who can. You turn grace into garden. You turn bones into armies. You turn seas into highways. You're the only one who can. You're the only one who can. You're the only one who can. Oh, there's nothing better than you, Lord. There's nothing better than you, Lord. There's nothing, nothing is better than you. Sing that again. Oh, there's nothing better than you, Lord. There's nothing better than you, Lord. There's nothing, nothing is better than you. You turn mourning. You turn mourning to dancing. You give beauty for ashes. You turn shame into glory. You're the only one who can. You turn graves. You turn graves into gardens. You turn bones into armies. You turn seas into highways. You're the only one who can.